Hello, welcome to Nerdgoria. My name is Tyler. This is my concise guide on how to build a base and keep your dudes fed without you ever pushing a button after it's set up. So let's begin. The first thing you should note about your pawns is that each one has a racial modifier, varying from weapon proficiency to how much they eat in a given day. These are important because it helps to have the right pawn doing the right job. For instance, you wouldn't want your cook to be a Scorchlander because their racial mod says that they cook at a 0.9. You would rather have the Greenlander in your crew be the cook because they have 1.25 cooking level. The thing about Kenshi is that each food item in this game has a property called NU attached to it. What NU is just the basic nutritional unit that a pawn would get from eating that item. Speaking of which, let's do an audit and see how much your pawns do eat in a given day. We got skeletons who don't require any food whatsoever. They're robots, so that's fantastic. Then you have hivers. Hivers are great because they have a hunger rate of 0.5, which means that they eat 20 NU per day. Additionally, they're also one of the only humanoid races that can eat rotten meat, making them pretty neat. Then you got your Scorchlanders at a 0.9 hunger rate, making them eat 36 NU per day, which is marginally better than the 1.0 that a Greenlander will have. Eating about 40 NU per day, they are the baseline for hunger rate as far as Kenshi is involved. Then you have your chunky boy Sheks who eat at a 1.25 hunger rate, meaning that they eat 50 NU per day. They eat the most, but they're also the ones who are probably going to be your best warriors in the long run. Now that we quantified how much we eat in a day, we can begin to think about how big of an operation we're going to have. With my operation here, I make about 665 NU per day. That's with 4 extra large wheat straw farms and 4 extra large cactus farms. I do have a little bit of excess cactuses, which I turn into rum. That's about enough to feed 13 Shek or about 16 Greenlanders. So I'm doing pretty good for myself. My farmers are drones because they have a racial modifier of 1.20, which means that they're able to harvest 20% faster and gain farming experience 20% faster. I could probably add a couple farms to my workload, but at this point we're making so much food it doesn't even matter. My 2 farming drones aside, I have 2 cooks. One that runs 2 bread ovens and makes the flour, and another that runs 2 stoves and makes the sandwiches. That way everything is done sequentially and I know everything is getting done. Now, there are 3 different types of food in Kenshi that are generally thought of as the best, starting with food cubes. Food cubes require 10 wheat, 8 green fruit, and have 75 NU, which is fairly decent. I just don't know how I feel about eating something called a food cube, it doesn't sound exactly appetizing. Gohan, which actually looks pretty delicious. It can be made with 10 rice wheat and 8 green fruit, and also has 75 NU, so just as comparable as the food cube, and actually looks better to eat, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's in the swamp where you grow most of the rice until late game when we start getting our hydroponics set up. And my personal favorite is not exactly the most appetizing. It's called Dustwitch Sandwiches. They have a 10 wheat to 8 cactus ratio, and they have 70 NU, and they're a little bit less than the other 2, but the thing about that is that it's going to more than likely be in an arid area, which is usually less patrolled by like Shek and Holy Nation guys, which is kind of a great transition for me to say that whichever of the 3 foods you do decide to grow is strictly dictated by the biome you decide to build in. An arid area is going to have 100% cactus growth, 60% wheat straw, and 50% hemp. Whereas swamp will have 100% rice weed and hemp, which is fairly cool, but you won't be able to grow those green fruit there like I had thought originally. You're going to need hydroponics if you're going to get that sweet, sweet Gohan. And of course, the Greenland, which is completely hogged up by the Holy Nation. They get 100% cotton, hemp, green fruit, and wheat straw, which is the perfect place to make food cubes. It truly is the land of milk and honey.
When you're setting out to find a base, it's good to have a pawn that has the science skill leveled up. They're able to prospect better, and they're able to let you know where on the map the resources are located.
For my base, I picked Shem because it's far enough away from the Holy Nation and the Shek Empire so that they don't bother you. And because it's arid and you can both grow wheat straw and cactus, which is pretty important to my strategy. Once you find a place you deem suitable, you should ask yourself 3 questions. Do you have a means to protect your base? Once you set down your first farm or building, the game alerts every faction to your location. Legitimately defending your base is pretty easy depending on where you set up at. Bandits, ninjas, and beak teams can be fended off easily with 3 basic units, a group of mercenaries, and you don't even really need a wall at first. For the purpose of this guide, I'm just going to edit in a Shek murder machine because it's hilarious and it can carry a great deal of weight and run a great distance, which is perfect if you're someone like me who forgot to ask themselves question number 2. Did you bring enough materials? Yeah, prepare accordingly. You may or may not need to hire a couple of people just to carry all this stuff. Now, I'm also going to recommend when you go out, you bring enough materials to at least build a stone mine and a stone processor so that you can build your own building materials, as well as an iron refinery so that you can build your own iron plates. You're also going to probably need a small shack and a small research bench, just in case you need to turtle up your weaker workers, and you forgot to ask yourself question number 3. Did you do all the research required? You can research and advance your tech with the help of books, which are fairly common to buy at any town. But there are some bits of research that is harder to find, like ancient textbooks can be found in ancient labs or burnt out libraries. Engineering research and AI cores are pretty rare, but you can buy them at Black Desert City, just north at Scrap House. They're pretty expensive, but if you're just out of ideas of where to find them, this is a good place to get your first couple. Additionally, if you're like me and you forgot to do any research up to this point, then you're going to need at least 2 crops of any farm you plan to make, as well as 2 books per type of farm for the research. This doesn't include your hydro farm. In order to unlock hydroponics, you're going to need 8 ancient science textbooks to unlock tech level 5, as well as 1 AI core to unlock hydroponics itself. From there, each type of hydroponic farm you're going to unlock will require 4 more ancient textbooks. Hydroponics grows much faster than traditional farming. They also are able to be harvested faster as well. Now, if you put a hive drone in charge of your farms, he can manage 33 hydro farms on his own. That's 594 crops. If you put a Greenlander in charge of those very same farms, he can only manage 25 of your hydro farms, and that's 450 crops. So take what you will. The power of the hive drone, right? Jeez. So 594 wheat straw crops is about 59 breads, which means 59 dust witches or 59 food cubes. It would be in your best interests before you start your hydro farm to invest some of your research time into Generator 2 and fuel production. A Generator 2 produces 130 power, which means you could run 13 hydro farms on it. In order to have a self-sufficient hydro farm, it's probably wise to dedicate 2 of the 13 hydro farms running on a generator strictly for fuel. You can probably even have the same drone working on the farm make the fuel for the generators also. When you do this, you'll have 11 hydro farms to do with whatever you want. But I would recommend doing 5 wheat straws and 4 green fruit on each one of these. And that would leave you with 2 extra, which I usually dedicate to hemp. I could use hemp for either cloth, or I can compress it and make it into hashish, which sells for a great price over in the United Cities. With proper storage and the right ponds working the right jobs, you can easily produce up to 1,600 NU with just 2 generators worth of hydro farms. That's enough to feed about 40 Greenlanders easy. The best part is, you're only going to have to dedicate 2 or 3 of your ponds for this after it's all set up.
Now, with that being said, I do realize this wasn't exactly a concise guide like I had hoped. But I hope it helps you somehow through your magical journey through the wastelands. And please, let me know if I forgot anything you think was important, or if you want me to tackle any other topics in Kenshi. And have a great day, and I'll see you next Friday.